Damn it, I realised I have the sunglasses on the wrong way around. Well, that bit's...
I probably should do it this way. There we
Okay,
go.
I'll do it the other way around.
Where's that evil leprechaun? I don't think that's how these things are supposed to work.
Hang on. How do I... Can I...
No, I will not watch Day After Tomorrow. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I can do that.
No. No, I don't like Everything Everywhere All at Once. I don't care what you think. I will not. No, stop. Oh, my dad.
Everything's normal. Don't worry. Everything's normal. Oh, wait, there's fly creatures.
Well, you were talking about Baby Driver off camera. Now you...
At least something good came from Baby Driver glasses other than Kevin Spacey. Oh, wait.
Wait a minute. Hold on. What's that thing in the background of mine? Oh, Stream F about it. New video coming Thursday. PST noon. Oh, cool. It's good that I know about water parks' new video.
So, happy Christmas, everybody. Oh, wait, it's November the 28th, not December the 28th. There you go. All makes sense.
Anyway.
I don't even know when we went live. I don't know how much of this
I'm sure there's people
from the point where I screwed up with the glasses because I was trying to pull the... And I forgot that I had to have the glasses in front of my eyes because they wouldn't fit behind the sunglasses. And otherwise, if I just have the sunglasses, I can't press the button, which is seems to be a trend every so often where it's like, we're not streaming. We lie, you know. It always goes back to Penn and Teller. Are we live?
Are we live?
So yeah, welcome everybody. Episode 17 of the Popcast Movie Club, closing out November with something which I know, Chris, you said it's topical, but then considering everything I've heard in the past 24 hours about what's going on with China and their sort of like everything that's going on, I think it's happening. You know, they can't when they broadcast the World Cup, they can't show any of the fans without masks because that'd make people think that the pandemic isn't as bad as it is. So like, yeah, as you said, Chris, weird connotations, not just in Chinese media, but a lot of media. So yeah, They Live, coming up to its, 35th anniversary next year?
1988.
Maybe it'll be a faff event. Who knows? Anniversary.
Oh, I'd like that. I'd go see this in a theater.
I can't remember whether it got the remaster treatment last year or maybe 2020, which is the version that I saw. Like the regular They Live, I would have paid for, but I already paid for it when it was already on sale. But yeah, an interesting little film. I'm the host, Ashley, as always. Joining me through the cycle is AJ. Hopefully.
Oh, you can't hear me?
I didn't hear anything. That's why I was petrified. Also, Owen. And our purveyor of fine cheeses tonight, Chris.
Hello.
The cheese board that is They Live, which...
See, AJ, I spoke and no one panicked.
It is weird in that, like, the film only does pick up in, like, the first third is, like, just build up, and then it only gets interesting when we get to, like, the last hour, I would say. But it's still fun. It's still very Carpenter-esque. It's low
Yeah.
budget where it needs to be low budget. It's, high budget where it needs to be high budget, which is everybody dies. And all that sort of stuff. So, I know obviously it was originally going to be Pee-wee's Big Adventure from you, Chris, but why specifically did you want to go to the change?
I just felt like, with everything that's going on with Twitter and everything that's going out there in the different countries of the world, I just thought this was a nice little fun movie to look at that's literally about like elites trying to control the minds of others through subliminal messaging.
I guess that makes sense. Considering...
Not to mention, it didn't occur to me till like over halfway through when I was, because I kept having to remind myself, like, when did this come out again? That this came out on an election year.
Yep.
And how there's a very good chance that was not accidental.
An extremely divisive election year too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I was very young when it happened. I wasn't really paying attention, but I do remember back in the history books, thinking about how crazy that election year was. Oh, by the way, I'm Owen. Ashley forgot to introduce me today.
I said that. It just must have blipped.
Okay, I'll just sit here and drink my energy potion. It's okay.
I'm trying to... I don't know the U.S. politics off the top of my head. I know Bush won, but who was running against Bush that year?
I believe it was Michael Dukakis.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know politics either, but I like political movies.
I remember all the Bob Dole jokes when he was going up against Clinton in The Simpsons. That's about it.
I was a big Bob Dole supporter in 1992 when I wasn't able to vote. It was wonderful. His support wouldn't have got him any votes from me because obviously I couldn't vote. But we did have a mock presidential debate in class one day, and I represented Bob Dole, and I even spoke like Norm Macdonald's version of Bob Dole too. It was great.
Why am I not surprised? So, I do appreciate that it does it starts on the mystery where Roddy Piper's Nada sort of doesn't fully know what's going on.
He's also never credited. He is in the credits itself, but he's never that name is never mentioned once in the movie.
Yeah,
especially not his first name.
Yeah,
it's the character's name in the short story.
Yep.
The
really awesome neck affixer you can buy too.
I don't know who all has read the short story, but I was surprised. It's a short story that takes like 5 or 10 minutes to read. Like, they're not lying when it's called a short story. But yet it manages to hit like all the points in that little tiny bit of time. Though there is an eerie sort of thing going on with the short story that's not a part of the movie.
Okay.
Because the short story is called 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And the reason it's called that is because Nada gets a phone call from like the higher ups telling him that he's going to die of a heart attack at 8 o'clock in the morning. And despite the rebellion happening, the story ends with that happening. Him dying of a heart attack when they said he would.
Wow.
I found that very interesting given the circumstances of Piper's death in real life. Even though that's not how he goes out in the movie. Yeah, it's a little eerie.
So in that
Just
respect,
a tad.
In that respect, although he obviously gets out of it, it's very much like the short story is very Crank-esque, and that there's sort of like a set time limit sort of thing for all the stuff to happen.
Yeah, because I think I'm assuming the concept is that he thinks that if he can get the rebellion to go against them and beat them, that he won't die at 8 o'clock in the morning. But the way it's worded is that he dies really before the war even takes place. But the war is ultimately won by humans, I guess you could say. They don't. I don't think they really go into the alien aspect in the story. They're just kind of the overseers.
Yeah, because it's not,
And the sunglasses bit isn't in the story. That's it's just it begins with him being like having just snapped out of hypnosis, and then just he can just kind of see them with his own eyes.
That sounds like a Carpenter thing, honestly, just by looking at it by face value.
I did appreciate
Yeah, I was
that first bit with the reveal with the billboard, which I'll just there, just randomly. The obey bit. You can clearly tell that that's a matte drawing because they didn't have the money to get a giant actual billboard with something on for actual like product placement. So it's just let's make one up and we'll do it as matte because it doesn't look like a natural billboard like some of the rest do.
I'm just gonna say one thing, and then I think after I say this one thing, I think I'm gonna hold back a little bit, and I'll tell you why. I will say that I love at the beginning when if I don't know if this was even the intention, but it feels like misdirection.
Mm-hmm.
Where when we're getting like the frequencies and he's discovering what's going on here, it feels at first like he's stumbling across a sinister cult or something.
And then it called out as a cult.
And then it ultimately turns out that they're actually the ones that are rebelling against this. And I love that for the simple fact that the people who have the right idea and know what's going on being dismissed as a sinister cult is exactly how propaganda would make them look. So it's funny that it just kind of feels like that at the start.
Even later on, when it's like, even the normal cops have sided with the superior race cops, with basically saying that all these people in the slums are commies and everything. So then they're an enemy of the state sort of thing, which, again, feels topical. It shouldn't be, but sadly it is.
Brother, I noticed this yesterday too. Is there a reason you keep like blinking out?
Huh?
It's like you like blink out every so often.
Well, my phone freezes every so often. Maybe those two things are related.
Oh, probably.
Makes sense.
Well, the reason I said I was gonna say that and then I was gonna hold back was that I want people to sing their praises of this because I enjoy this movie, but I don't love it, which basically falls in line with how I basically have always felt about this second half of the 80s that Carpenter was in, where I could probably easily say Carpenter is one of my favorite directors. But he had kind of a lineup here in the late 80s that I wasn't crazy about. 3 movies in particular, one of which I will be doing a video on that'll go out like tomorrow or the next day. But yeah. Being? There's already a video to prove this. There's a video on this channel where I explain, and I say that because I'm sure people will be upset, that I really, really don't like Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, okay.
And it kind of feels like we're in that territory. So yeah, where it's like I sit back and I watch everybody love every aspect of these movies, and despite my love for Carpenter, they just don't really click with me in the same way.
See, to me, I really enjoy Big Trouble in Little China, but I don't think that like They Live is anywhere near that level. I don't think it's like his best work, but I also don't think it's atrocious like some of his stuff sort of in in later years became, because it sort of, as I say, it does take probably a bit too long to get into the interesting bit. I felt you could do more sort of situations with, you know, him coming to terms with the reveal of all the superior being people being around, rather than just having sort of this bit of establishing him as like this drifter that's just randomly come into town looking for a job. At the same time, that also makes me wonder how many of the, was the person that he was trying to get, the at the job place, was she an alien? Because in her behavior, she sort of seemed like it.
Yeah, I do want to preface my saying that with one more thing, and that is, in this group of Carpenter movies I'm not crazy about, I do think that They Live I like They Live a lot more than those other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I still like this. Just I definitely wouldn't call it peak Carpenter or anything, but that's kind of an impossible bar anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'll open the floor to you, Owen. Owen, I'll open it up to you if you want to.
Yeah, that's fine. So growing up, big Roddy Piper fan. Obviously, Roddy Piper was one of the greatest heels of all time, and I've always gravitated towards heels in wrestling. If you're not a wrestling fan, which there's a lot of crossover on this network for a good reason, but if you're not, basically, he was one of the best bad guy wrestlers in the history of the wrestling business, and will remain so to this day. And the only person that comes any close to this day is the current AEW World Heavyweight Champion, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. Now, that being said, the Piper I know, the Hot Rod, that's what I knew. I knew him from the WWF. I did not know much about his film background. They Live as a movie I have, weirdly enough, escaped my entire life. I've seen bits and pieces. I've known the bubblegum quote, even though most people flip the wording backwards. The times that I've actually heard it, when people have quoted it, it's been misquoted. Hearing Piper actually say it, now I know that everybody misquotes it all the time, and it makes me laugh. And truth be told, if I would have thought about it, there would have been a companion piece to this podcast of me doing the I'm all out of bubblegum Roddy Piper drink that I have seen many times that I've never actually snagged. It's like bubblegum soda, which bubblegum soda could go one of two ways. Either A, it's going to taste like medicine, or B, it's going to be like pretty much too sweet. So it could go either way. That video is probably coming at this point. I got to go back to Deezerland anyway because it's award season. So I got to go see movies that don't play at AMC. So that being said, like I said, this is the first time I came across this movie and actually watched it.
Which is shocking to me.
It's crazy to think, isn't it? Weirdly enough, my Roddy Piper acting knowledge would have been Tag Team and Body Slam. Body Slam was a movie that was actually an actual movie on television, and Body Slam was a failed television pilot back in the early 80s with Jesse Ventura, actually. Mm-hmm. That's all I knew. I knew of the existence of They Live. I just never, compelled me. When Halloween Horror Nights started in my life, I realized that we pay a lot of homage to John Carpenter every year. We have houses and streets that are loosely based on stuff like The Fog. We literally do Halloween every other year, or every couple years. Needless to say, at the end of the day, we pay homage to John Carpenter many ways. And with us doing 3D houses, or just using the creme adept classes, I thought it would be perfect to do that for They Live. we've done 80s seasons before. Like the last couple years, we've been focusing on different years and everything. Like this past year, not so much. But beforehand, we focus a lot more on an 80s theme. And I thought this would have fit really well in there. And after watching the movie, yeah, I can see how it could work. It'd be it'd be a very interesting house, and I'd love to be a part of it, to be quite honest with you. But it wasn't. You're about to say something?
Well, no, I was just gonna say like the only thing I could figure is like the characters in the sort of area have like everybody has face paint, but certain people have face paint that when it goes under UV makes them look completely different to everybody else that just has regular face paint.
That's what we do with our 3D houses, and I think that would actually work quite well.
Yeah.
It'd be very interesting to see. We do like the mannequin scare that everybody does every single year. We've done like to a T every single year of like who's real and who's not, because everybody can be painted up the exact same way, but there's one or two people that are actually really there, and they're going to jump out at you. So, yeah. Hi, I want to be that person. Anyway, because I don't look like Roddy Piper. Thing is, at the end of the day, I think that this movie, like AJ said before, it's something that he's watched, and he's kind of like, he likes it, but he's not like over the moon like a lot of people are about it. And I can't say I'm over the moon about it, but I can say that I really enjoyed it. Like, I watched... It's bad to say. I watched 4 movies this week, and it's the weakest of the 4. But considering the fact that I watched Glass Onion, The Fabelmans, and Bones and All, that's easy to say. But, yeah, I mean, it's a solid movie. It's a good 80s action movie. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the dialogue because it was of the times. And, oh, my God, I have never seen him so young. Keith David, oh, my God. Dr. Facilier really changed a lot since he's been a kid.
Well, this was 6 years after the thing.
I know, that's crazy.
And, of course, like, one of the longest fight scenes in movie history.
Oh, my God. It's the fight scene that never ends.
It's just like an AEW match featuring the Young Bucks. You think it's finished, and we drag it out some more, and we drag it out some more, and we drag it out some more. Oh, and then it finishes.
It basically fits that structure of when it starts, it's good, and then as it keeps going, it starts to get annoying, and then as it keeps going, it becomes amazing.
Yeah.
It goes through the whole gauntlet.
I could think of a movie this year that had a fight scene just like that. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, at the end of the day, I really liked it. I mean, it's not like the greatest thing since Slumdog or anything like that, but I will say that it's solid. It's great action. It's got really good dialogue. The acting is solid as well. I mean, Piper's a good actor. He really was. He was a great actor. Not like he wasn't going to win anything, but for what he was portraying, he was perfect for it.
Yeah, I don't know if great actor is the right words, but his commitment to it. Because I talked about that when I talked about that fucking Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies thing.
Yeah.
The one that was filmed at City Park Pavilion.
I was like, this is the lowest of the low for anybody, but I admire how game he was for it. And I think that's what he brought here too.
I told you that building that they filmed that final sequence in was a building that I have had so many great memories in my wrestling career in. And the final memory of my wrestling career was getting a stink face from the late JT Hogg at the end of my last match as a professional wrestler in 2002.
I don't want what I just said to be misconstrued as me saying this also counts as lowest of the low. Literally, the criticism I kept making when I talked about Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies was, this guy was the lead in a Carpenter movie. He does not need this. This is not where he should be.
I'm trying to remember where this falls in relation to Hell Comes to Frogtown, because that's like the other major one where he was a lead. Would that have been 90?
That's the other one that comes to mind when you're talking about his theatrical career
was that
for
90 or don't know what year that was.
It was around that time. I'm horrible when it comes to years on actual release date. Oh, and
Let me see if I can find it.
How did you guys feel about the way the movie ended? Like the very last shot of the movie.
Frogtown was 87, so it was the year before.
Oh, right. Oh, right. So, I know it was mentioned in chat. Let me quickly get to the bit from Josephine. Apparently...
No. We need to go to that afterwards.
Apparently, Carpenter wanted a rugged individual to play Nada, but cast Piper after seeing him at WrestleMania 3, which of course was his quote-unquote retirement match with Adrian Adonis. Which probably would have led into him being away having to film Hell Goes to Frogtown.
So, you're talking about the ending, Chris, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I got a question for the panel here. With the way the ending happened with the satellite and the way that it ended, would you think maybe just slightly, not too much, but slightly, that the ending of The Cable Guy had a little bit of an homage to They Live?
I could see it.
Thank you for not letting me die on that hill alone, Chris. I appreciate that.
What I learned was that the whole ending is so abrupt. I basically forgot how it ended. I remember the very last shot. The very, very last shot right before it cuts to credits. I did remember that.
AJ, but you've seen thousands of movies. Have you ever seen a movie end with a tit shot?
I feel like there's at least one. It was probably a Lars von Trier movie.
That sounds about right. Oh,
I mean, to some extent, good luck to you, Leo Grande.
That ended with full frontal shot.
It's not very last shot, I think.
It's like it's Emma Thompson's full frontal shot, and then I think it's like one more close up of her face, and then it ends.
Yeah. So somewhat similar.
But yeah, but like I had forgotten that Frank died. Like, forget the fact that like all the characters die, but I'd specifically forgotten that Frank died because if you blink, you miss his death.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the climax happens, and then it's like the whole idea of this is the big reveal to the human race that the aliens are among them, and like just as we vaguely register that that's what happened, the credits are rolling.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because that moment when the humans find out, that could have been a whole other movie in itself.
Yeah.
Just processing that moment.
Like when they're waiting on the brothers to get convicted in The Cable Guy, and all of a sudden all the transition goes out.
And I would have liked... I'm conflicted because I would have liked to have seen more of the reaction. Like, I would have liked to have seen basically an implication that there's going to be a war. But at the same time, I don't want to sacrifice that being the last shot.
Well, here's the thing, though. And Ashley, this is to you. Based on the ending, based on the setup for the ending, based on how the ending plays, I obviously mean John's death scene. I'm not talking about the, hey, let's snap back into reality. How has this not had a video game adaptation yet? Because I can imagine a digitized image of John flipping the middle finger as he's dying slowly, and then it says the end. We're panning up, seeing the building.
It sort of has.
Elaborate, please.
So Saints Row 4 came out, 2009, 2010-ish?
Okay.
Following on from Saints Row 3, like, somehow in that I'm trying to think whether that whole thing of, like, saving the world is just, like, a film thing that happens at the end of 3. I think it is, because, like, people die, but they don't actually die. Or it depends which ending you do, because you can do multiple endings in that. But either way, somehow, by the start of Saints Row 4, your character is President of the United States, and Keith David is your vice president.
Yep.
And
Reading it right now.
Everybody all the main politics people get taken up in a UFO and dropped into this world that's all very 1950s and all crazy and wacky. And they live style, they sort of break out of it and realize, oh no, we're actually on a spaceship. And then manage to get down into what Steelport, the city where it's all based, has become, which is sort of as it was, but at the same time, you know, aliens are about, and you know, the aliens sort of become like the police, and that they sort of, yeah, they want to stop you from sort of revealing everything to the world, but again, they're sort of like mind control manipulation stuff. And then it comes to a bit where Keith David is like president, but has sort of become de facto president because basically he was forced to by the alien race. It was like, give up your thing or we'll destroy the world, and so he thought it was better to sort of like let them live among them and whatever. Among Us.
Well,
so I had to do that joke.
I know. Well, actually, I know that like video games have come so far nowadays. We're on like the PlayStation 72 at this point. Needless to say, but when They Live came out, could you imagine like, because Nintendo they would do any movie at this point. Now, granted, like flipping the bird in 1980s and the early 90s, that wouldn't have got over. But like, Nintendo did hardcore R-rated movies as PG video games, so I could have easily imagined Nintendo going for a They Live, and I think it would have done quite well given the fact that people were willing to buy anything in the 80s.
I didn't get to the best bit, so
I could definitely see like a pixelated version of like the satellite, and you're in like a kind of like a beat 'em up boss battle with the satellite in the background.
Piper kind of reminded me of like the Ninja Turtles video game.
Yes, yeah, something exactly like that.
Oh yeah, like a comic book style. That'd be great.
Yeah, man, you and I are clicking tonight, Owen.
Indeed.
So Keith like is happy with this, and then when he sees his friend sort of get hurt and whatever, he double turns on the aliens, and so the big boss alien abducts him and puts him into his own sort of nightmare prison, which is him coming face to face with Rowdy Roddy Piper, and then basically recreates that entire alley scene from They Live, where they're just beating the crap out of each other while you are trying to stop the aliens from sort of resisting, and then by the end of it, like, Roddy Piper's like, well, the only way he's going to come out of it if I beat the shit out of it and some more. And then that knocks him out the hallucination. And then Keith is like, he always shows up when he's needed. I don't know where he comes from, but he always does. Also a nice little bit in a nod to Duke Nukem. Obviously taking the chew bubble gum and kick ass. I think that's where it got flipped. It might have been Duke Nukem where it was kick ass and chew bubble gum and I'm all out of gum.
That's where I always heard it when I was growing up. I heard it flipped all the time.
They probably flipped it maybe for copyright reasons, because if they didn't say it exactly right, they could get away with it more. I don't know. And of course, you basically know what he'd wear. You know, sort of like a wife beater style vest / shirt. Duke Nukem would.
Yeah.
And so Roddy Piper's line in Saints Row is, if I see that stupid haired idiot with a crop top, I'm gonna beat his brains in.
Nice.
So yeah, it was weird to have that show up.
I think one of the other reasons I like the last shot that they go with is I remember Spider-Man Far From Home, when the teacher was telling the story about how his wife used the blip to leave him, essentially. Like, I remember when that happened, I thought, man, that would be kind of fun to see play on screen, like how normal everyday situations would happen with the blip. And I feel like They Live tackled that right away with the last shot of the movie. Like, because you see, like, the newscasters turn and everything, but then you get the shot of, like, that's something that somebody hypothetically would ask, but They Live just shows you exactly what happens in that scenario.
True.
Yeah, they could have just implied it. So
Yeah. But I love that we get to actually see it.
especially like the guy that's sitting in the bar,
Mhm.
and it's like it makes sense that like he's just focused on the TV because he's seeing what he always sees supposedly. But it's like he's completely oblivious to all the commotion around him.
It's like the GIF I see all the time, like the meme that goes around with Homer like sitting there and like everybody's got their mind on one thing and Homer's thinking like, what's going on?
But I feel like a lot of times you would think that, it'd be funnier to hear about something as opposed to see it happen. But I feel like this is one of those cases where it was funnier to watch it happen than it would have been if somebody would have just said it happened.
Right.
And it's kind of an extra comedic note that it just abruptly cuts to credits like in the middle of that.
Yeah. It's kind of like they let you go out on a funny moment when like the whole movie essentially was just the ending was so doom and gloom.
Yeah, we just literally watched the main characters do a suicide mission, and then that's the note it ends on.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to remember which movie or TV show or TV episode that I'm thinking of, where it's sort of a similar thing, in that the final word is just like, what? There was something like that. I can't remember.
Is it the end of Birdie with Matthew Modine you're thinking of?
No.
Well, that fits into that as well.
Or maybe it's just anything to do with Zoidberg. When it's a scene when Zoidberg just goes, what? Maybe it's that. That's what I'm thinking of.
I have a question. I'm hoping somebody can kind of elaborate on.
Mm-hmm.
What was up with Meg Foster? Just in general.
Yeah. It was like, oh,
Because
she's here.
She was.
And then, like, I
Because
know
she's
she
like,
isn't an alien, but like at the same time, has she got alien tendencies? Because, sorry, if you can hit a man and make him fall 200 feet out of your fucking LA fancy
That was
apartment.
amazing.
I like her casting in general because Meg Foster's eyes, in particular, are really unmistakable, and they're like to where they're almost otherworldly. But those are just her actual eyes. But then it's like, because at first, she knocks him out the window, and you think like, oh, does she know something, and she thinks he's something. But then like, there's a lot of Canadian apologizing going on. Like it wasn't until he kept saying he was sorry, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot Piper's Canadian.
Most people did.
But then she shows up and she's like, oh, sorry. Oh my God, I thought I killed you. But then she's like still bad. And do we ever learn what her purpose is? Like helping the aliens?
She just kind of shows up when everybody's all kibitzing around at the meeting at the end. That's the last time you see her. And then we find out it's like, oh yeah, she's a heel. There you go.
I mean, if you want to pinpoint what her cause was, I mean, if it was her mission to kill Keith David, she succeeded.
Can't beat him, join him.
Yeah.
Which I guess that probably is the angle, because of course the homeless guy who smarts up in the end and gives Nada and Keith David the tour, I don't think he's an alien. He's just like wangled his way in.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the age-old Blade Runner debate of who's a replicant and who isn't, and how can you tell?
Well, we know she isn't, I think, because he sees her with the glasses on, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
So
100%.
she's just a sympathizer that's, using the situation for her own gain. She's willing to turn a blind eye to it. Just like it, is when he gets confronted by the two police officers and kills her. The officers do say, maybe we're gonna come to some sort of agreement, sort of thing. Which basically might have been the
That never
offer
ends
of,
well.
Yeah.
if you kill us quietly, we'll make you rich. That sort of thing.
It never ends well for the cops. They should know this by watching all movies.
Yeah, the movie's really not clear on it, but that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, they don't. For all we know, I'm trying to remember. Does homeless smarted up guy get killed?
I think everybody died in the shootout.
After a while, there's so much chaos to keep up with.
Some people escaped, but I'm not sure if he was one of the ones or not.
Well, I think the last time we saw him was when he used his watch to teleport out of there, and I don't think we saw him again, did we?
That's true.
Yeah.
That sounds right, yeah.
Take advantage of the situation. Whether he's on there, he can then suddenly spin it and say, "Oh, I was undercover all the time. Make me your new president. I am human." Yeah, I'd have liked to have seen. I mean, the bit that sort of goes where it starts to go a bit too over the top is when we get to, and I pretty much time checked it, 20 minutes from the end, when the new rebel base gets raided, and then it's just like, here's the budget, have 59,000 squibs, just make them go off. I want blood everywhere. I want death. Just, it seems like all the budget went to that rather than like practicing anything else. That's why he does the score on so many things, because it's cheaper for him to do it for like a couple of $100 himself, and then like use all the other stuff on crazy effects.
I do like also the big gunfights that are confined to like hallways.
Mm-hmm.
Gives me like when you look at like how big this movie's concept is and how it's aliens and all that. We see space through a window at one point. But when you see these gunfights in these hallways, it's kind of like he brought himself back to Assault on Precinct 13 when he had no budget whatsoever, and was kind of blending that with a much more big budget and more mainstream kind of thing. Like I love a director that never leaves their roots completely behind.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine if Carpenter was making films today, he'd want that much CGI in his stuff. I think he's very much, let's do it as practical as possible. But yeah, it's like, I'm trying to work out whether Cable 54 was supposed to be representative of anything directly, whether he was going at anything. I mean, obviously the big thing he was going at railing up against was Siskel and Ebert, since they both turned out to be aliens.
Yeah, there's the Romero name drop, and then he name drops himself. I have another question. This is kind of another one of those things of like we talked about with the Meg Foster character. It's like if somebody can give me an opinion that might sway me in a direction of appreciating it more. The one-liners, are they ironically great, unironically great, or not that great? Or a mixture?
It's probably a mix. Like, some of them don't hit, some of them are actually like smart.
Because they found a catchphrase with the bubblegum line.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just kept looking for more catchphrases. There's the what's it? Life's a Bitch, and she's back in heat.
Yeah.
You look like you fell in the cheese dip in 1957. That one's pretty forced, but
To me, it's the bit after. You look normal. You, real fucking ugly.
yeah. What's up with the like? I love that beginning there when he realizes what's going on, and I like the way how it's like he has to kind of remain hidden. But then for some reason, when he gets to the store, he's just the first thing he wants to do is completely out himself. Like, where did that come from? I mean, I know we have to have the chase sequence, and it actually helps the plot that they know they're looking for him and that he knows. But it's just like suddenly he just kind of decided, I'm just going to out myself right here and now.
Maybe that's the wrestler in him, because of course the people that get most angry at wrestling shows are the old people that get way too into it.
I did see
this.
So
I
much
did-
so that, you know,
People yell
they
at you
even
for
have in Pro Wrestling's Greatest Secrets Revealed. But she's a stunt granny.
That's a work. That stuff's never happened in the history of ever.
Oh, did you? It does make sense. I'm guessing you guys know the origin of the bubblegum line.
Nope.
Where I get while he was on the set, he had a notebook of lines he was going to use for like in promos, and
Nice.
Carpenter got a hold of it, and that line was in it. And they both agreed that it should be used by Nada.
It was semi ad libbed. It was basically in Roddy's jotter, and John's like, "That's good. Can you use that one?"
I just wonder what other gold was in that notebook and how much of it got used, like in promos.
I know Roddy very well through watching his entire career from the beginning all the way to the end. 100% everything. He would have found some use for something somewhere.
Just a couple of days ago, I was rewatching Randy Savage's Cream of the Crop promo on YouTube.
Heck yeah.
It just keeps popping up in my recommended every couple of years.
Very nice.
Oh, another one that felt like a really forced one-liner that I actually don't mind is like it's definitely forced and it's not a great line. When it's Mama don't like tattletales. The reason I don't hate that one is that he misses out on his cool moment because the alien teleports before he can shoot it.
Yeah.
So that one was always meant to go limp.
You never get the actual payoff. Briefly having a look at Bry does mention, says that he wants to thank Chris because he didn't know that They Live was the one that had the I've come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass and I'm all about a bubblegum line. I guess it's become that a bit ubiquitous online that you know Roddy Piper said it in a bank,
Yep.
but you don't know what it's from. Because most of the bits just have him there with the shades saying the line, and it doesn't reflect the fact that there's aliens in the room as well. Josephine says, such a pleasure revisiting the film. It really predated The Matrix with its themes. I can see that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Although partly like
Yeah, because the thing that I was also thinking about when I was watching it again was that one of the things I also felt like gets way overpraised is like how profound it is about like basically outing, you know, like how government controls us and stuff like that. And it's like for being seen as this really profound prophetic thing that's making this giant statement, it's a pretty basic and obvious statement to make. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel like it really goes under the surface of that sentiment.
Yeah, it's like the
But
commentary of like the big wigs made a whole load of profits, and what are they doing? Giving themselves raises, and I'm like, this is the same thing that happened last week with one of the like energy companies or whatever it was over here, and I was like, so if this was commentary to try and get to buck the system, it would work.
But I did want to elaborate on that, on my feelings of that, and I was trying to remember, like, if this would have been significantly more profound in 1988, because obviously that's like all people talk about anymore is how controlling the government is and stuff like that, and how we're just gonna conforming and all that other stuff. But it's like, was it something that in 1988 would have been like surprising to see in a mainstream movie?
I'd say
I mean, there's been movies for years that kind of flip the middle finger to conformity. Like the one that popped in my head immediately is the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh yeah. And of course, 1984 had been made into a movie by this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think, like, okay, so it was #1 at the box office that week. I was just intrigued to see what it was going up against.
I remember hearing something.
I do find it ironic that the original release date being October 21st, 88, got moved, because they didn't want it to clash with Halloween 4.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, so does that mean it also opened in the election month, or even the election week?
November
That seems pretty close to
4th.
that. Isn't that like right around the time it usually is?
It's the second Tuesday in November.
So right before.
It was the week before.
Yeah, because it would have been Tuesday. Tuesday. Yeah, if
4th.
It was 4th of November. It would be done Tuesday the 1st. So Tuesday the 8th would have been election day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm intrigued to see what it was like beating in the box office, because I think it said it only took like 4 million and managed to get #1 in the box office. Which even at this rate,
I feel like I heard
#1
something
today.
about how like I feel like I heard something about how people were talking about how there was something conspiracy-like about it, where a movie with the message this movie has was #1 at the box office, and then like suddenly its box office started dying off like right after that. I don't know if there's any truth to that. I just feel like I read that somewhere.
All right. On to the... Oh, Ashley lost sound. Yep. You can hear me. There we go. Ashley, onto the chat. Well, I've got it, so let's go. Take a shot. Josie says the commentary on consumerism is something seen in other 80s films like RoboCop and Chopping Mall. And Josie says we should have Obey as the waiting poster from now on.
Yeah, that seems fair.
I forgot about RoboCop. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that was just the year before.
They Live was #1 to... Wow. U2's Rattle and Hum. And Everybody's All American.
Yeah, that's
what a crazy top
Jesus.
3 that is.
I don't have words.
I was thinking Everybody's All American was like the early 80s. I guess not.
All right. Josie says the themes speak even more to today, with people becoming zombies with social media and technology. Carpenter brought some real homeless folks into the production for several scenes, and smaller characters giving them food and paychecks. Piper says I thought that was a pretty classy thing to do.
my god, it follows us everywhere. So apparently They Live got knocked off the following week by, at number 3, Iron Eagle 2, number 2, Ernest Saves Christmas, and number 1, Child's Play. so in the space of
That
a
makes
month, you had... Sorry, in the space of 2 weeks, you had Halloween 4, followed by They Live, followed by Child's Play. As the number one
So
films.
what you're saying is,
Yeah,
in essence,
no, because you have to have Roddy shotgunning Michael Myers in the bank style, and then Chucky.
not at Halloween Horror Nights.
Chucky killing Roddy Liv Morgan style.
Okay, so Josie brings up the line about that Ashley talked about with the promo notebook. Piper was married at the time. He would refuse to take off his wedding band.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I kind of like that, because the fact that we know nothing about Nada's background except for like his history with his dad a little bit, and it kind of gives him like this sort of backstory without explicitly having to give him one.
Yeah.
Right.
That he's wearing a wedding ring.
Josie also brought up.
I was gonna say.
Josie also brought up. Go.
Josie was bringing up as well. I got the little bit of notes about the being WrestleMania 3 as to casting him, and that again the character is not given a name, but just has Nada in the credits as a nod to George Nada in the Ray Faraday Nelson short story that we talked about, which apparently was also first published in '63, so it would have been around 25 years after the source material came out that the film was made. John also said that it was based on an Eclipse Comics comic book adaptation of the story. Interesting. So, why didn't you give that a credit?
I like that. I'm a little bit more happy with the next thing Josie brought us up, because she is the purveyor of trivia here on the network, and we appreciate it time. Take a shot. PKE meters and Ghostbusters were the same communicators the guards used.
As soon as I saw that with the guards, like, on the 19th floor, I was like, what the hell is a PKE meter doing in this film? And it didn't look like a toy one. It actually looked like, no, he somehow bought the actual, like, prop from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, because they're both Universal, aren't they?
Yes.
No.
We have a relationship with them, but it's not official.
Ghostbusters. The film was Columbia, wasn't it?
Columbia.
Yeah.
Which is now
yeah.
Sony.
The spine of my DVDs right there. I can see the Columbia logo from here.
But we have a relationship with them, so we were able to do the house a couple years ago.
Graffiti artist Shepard Fairley got his Obey meme from this film. Some of the artwork for like the alternate covers that you can get for these are like really good. Carpenter's been a wrestling fan since he was a kid. He even wrote a column for the Ring magazine.
Nice.
Sometimes I don't know whether that is like a wrestling magazine or a boxing magazine or both. Also, George Buck Flower was a homeless guy in They Live, Back to the Future, and Escape from New York. So what you're trying to say is he's a good hobo, but he doesn't have a shotgun. Isn't that right, Rutger Hauer? Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, that's an awesome film. The aliens superficially resemble walking, rotting corpses. John Carpenter didn't want the aliens to look like the high-tech creatures of other sci-fi films, and deciding that since these beings were corrupting humanity, they should be corruptions of human beings.
That's interesting.
But yeah, they still had fly faces, so it looked more like Jeff Goldblum. Bry also mentions that India and South Korea had presidential elections in '87, which was probably when this was being made. I would have guessed in terms of production. Josephine also says that can we come up with a sci-fi film with Roddy Piper, Dave Bautista, and The Rock? Yeah, do too. Oh no. I mean, Dave keeps asking about a Gears of War thing. I'm just trying to work out whether.
Yeah, after Glass Onion, I want Batista with a gun in my life like daily now. It's one of the most awesome images you will see this year. Dave Batista in swim trunks with a gun is shooting it up in the air. Amazing.
I'm trying to remember from the trailer whether we see him with a gun or is it a hatchet in the Shyamalan film that's coming up next year.
It's not a gun. I saw that trailer a couple days ago, actually.
Right. I couldn't remember.
Knock at the cabin.
Weapons were in it.
The strangers, if it were environmentalists.
Bry also says, can I just say...
I do have to mention something else real quickly.
No problem.
I'm also... Brother, since you're the one that picked the movie for it being topical, I'm curious how you feel about this also. I don't really know how to phrase this. But I said something very similar when we talked about V for Vendetta. And that's when you have a movie with this clear of a message, and also a message that kind of revolves around rebelling against a big force. How there's also people that like to use this kind of thing for evil, might in not so advisable ways,
their own purpose.
Yeah, like the way hate groups have latched on to the themes of this movie as well and used them to prop up their narrative. Or when I was talking about before about how like there's some conspiracy theories that seem to be proven accurate, and there's also conspiracy theories that are just literally insane people that should not be encouraged. And like way over the resurrecting the dead kind of conspiracy theories. Do you think does that leave movies like this with any bad taste, or do movies overpower that and that's something you can kind of look past?
I don't know. I think it would depend on just exactly what it was being used for. I think it helps a movie stay more relevant if both sides can use it. But at the end of the day, you don't want anybody to get hurt or anything as a result of the movie, because that's how stuff goes away. But I think the fact that people can spin it however they want to is going to keep the movie relevant anyway. Which I think is the ultimate goal for a movie. It wants to stay relevant. It wants to say, it wants to age over time. It wants to still be relevant 30 years after it comes out. And this movie succeeds in that. Nobody sets out to make a movie that they hope people forget tomorrow, unless you make movie 43 or something like that. But most people don't want to go that route.
That makes sense.
Bry says, can I say
I think it's just like, we might as well tie it back to wrestling. What's the saying, Owen? Any reaction is a good reaction.
Oh yeah, any buzz is positive, regardless if it's negative or not. Honestly, like there are things that have been said about me in a wrestling locker room and on the microphone that were 100% not true. But I rolled with it because it was buzz, regardless how you look at it.
That still doesn't explain Baron Corbin.
As long as you're on someone's mind, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. At least you're there.
Still doesn't explain Baron Corbin.
Nothing explains Baron Corbin.
Bryce says, can I say that They Live is another movie that says it's a horror movie, but it isn't?
Depends on how you consider horror. There's people that are terrified by what's going on in the world that would be absolutely mortified by this movie.
Yeah, fear is subjective.
Yeah, totally. Hi, Halloween Horror Nights character here.
The first time he sees the aliens is pretty jarring, and when he outs himself in the store and they start closing in, that's kind of a terrifying image.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say it's like sci-fi in action.
Well, it goes the same way of like Mars Attacks, like watching it for the first time and everything and seeing the alien and everything, that could scare the daylights out of somebody. But
Yeah.
like back then, exactly. We had that conversation the other night. But there at the end of the day, it's just like some people will be like, well, that happened. That's a thing. Oh my God, that makeup looks terrible. No, it's just like in the 80s, that stuff just terrified people and everything. And just to see that face for the first time, that's jarring. Now, if you watch it now, you might be like, well, I'm kind of desensitized to anything at this point because I've seen everything on cinema. So, needless to say, it's like, this isn't going to scare me, but it's scary to some. So, what's scary to some may not be scary to others. And as long as it makes money, that's all that matters.
Josephine says, I watched Vampires back in October and it didn't click with me as much as others. It's fun, but it's not great. Daniel Baldwin gives a terrible performance and is misogynistic. Oh, it's always.
That's actually not the first, unless Josie said this again like a while back and I've just forgotten it was her, but I feel like I've heard multiple times recently that Vampire is seen as misogynistic now. But I haven't seen it since like the early 2000s, so I have no recollection of it.
I've never seen it, so.
Bri mentions, like Brain Scan, you can also get this on Shout Factory. I mean,
Yeah, it's also available on archive.org. The greatest website that no one uses.
The sunglasses called Hoffman lenses are named after Alfred Hoffman, the creator of LSD.
I'd buy that.
And then, Keith David became the first actor to voice for 2 films nominated for Best Animated Feature. He was the voice of the cat in Coraline, and he was
He's Dr. Facilier!
Dr. Facilier in Princess and the Frog as well.
Yup. He's got one of the all-time great villain songs in Disney history.
He also appears in Platoon and Crash, being obviously Best Picture winners. And Keith David also was a Hall of Fame inductee to the Sci-Fi Hall of Fame back in 2017.
I still remember the first time I ever saw him. First time I ever saw him was when he was Cameron Diaz's stepdad, and There's Something About Mary. Delivering his immortal line, "Is it the Frank or the Beans?"
Here's the problem. Not knowing much about They Live at all, every time I see Keith David's name pop on the screen, for a minute, I always think it might be David Keith. Yeah. And given the fact it was the 80s, I was like, we're about to watch a Jack Parkman movie. Let's go.
There's been a number of times where I've seen the fight scene in this movie referenced, and they accidentally credit David Keith.
I want to see Roddy Piper fight Jack Parkman. Let's go. Give him a baseball bat and everything. Piper can even have a baseball bat. He used it at WrestleMania.
Brian mentions regarding the ending that he felt it was too fast and they should have done an epilogue, like with a full sort of like reveal.
Doesn't Carpenter usually do like the pull away shots to end his movies anyway? Like a very abrupt endings? Isn't he like known for that, basically?
I guess you could say that.
Because, I remember watching The Thing theatrically and just, like, hearing the dooming score and everything and watching the slow pan out.
It wasn't like a jump cut, though. Roddy Piper said, I'm the reason that Hulk Hogan lost his hair.
Yep.
Well, he keeps losing
Correct.
it, and Roddy isn't around, so there's got to be another reason. Oh, maybe it's all his marriages. Meg Foster said in interviews that she sometimes wears tinted contacts when doing filming because her natural eye color can come across as a character trait all on its own.
She has a personality of a door. What's her character trait? Credits.
And Bry also says that Holly Thompson was a pointless character. She sort of did feel like a MacGuffin, to be fair, to try and move the plot on. And of course, you know.
But she killed Dr. Facilier.
We couldn't.
That's the problem.
Yeah, but we couldn't actually show it. We just flash cut to Roddy on the roof.
Dude, she's as useless as Samantha is in No Holds Barred.
Yeah.
That's actually a very good comparison if you really think about it. Only there when necessary. Yeah, the MacGuffin thing you brought up, you're correct.
Josephine also says the name droppings of the critics at the end is somehow like how in Willow there's a monster called an Ebert. And Ray says, I think there should be more scenes around the area where the poor community lived before the police or the aliens destroyed it. Yeah, if you manage,
it was a shanty.
If you manage to get to connect maybe with that, the group there, aside from like those that weren't aware of the whole conspiracy thing and everything, it may have connected more. Maybe you could have put more of that in and less of Keith David and Roddy Piper fighting for 6 minutes.
Still better fight than nothing here.
Bry also mentions Keith David was in Cloud Atlas, by the way.
Yep.
Yes, many times.
And apparently Meg Foster's going to have a bit in Chris Stuckman, the YouTuber's Shelby Oaks horror film that I can't remember if that was a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo or crowdfunding of some sort that was. We'll see what happens with that. So I think
take it home.
I'm going to say we're going to get to final thoughts.
Oh, we'll never mind. That's the last comment.
Yeah. Final thoughts.
I think Chris will go last on this one because it was his film.
That's how I normally try and work it out. Overall, it was fun and nice. Some of the bits will be sort of like cool to see, like in the context of the film again, because I hadn't seen it for probably 4 or 5 years in itself. It's always a sort of a fun thing to sort of watch. I wouldn't say it's like gonna be in my top 50, films ever or whatever. But it's not like it's something that I was sort of not wanting to see. I was enjoying it. It wasn't sort of, it dragged obviously in places, but I wasn't sort of generally sort of bored out on my skull with it. AJ?
Well, the one thing in my notebook that I wrote down that I didn't mention was props to Keith David for that move where he's got him pinned down and he's thrusting his knee into his balls repeatedly. That's a pretty useful move.
I need to make a note of that for myself if I need to get into a fight. Knee in the ball.
Utilize the backyard wrestling mentality of anything can be a weapon.
Yeah, hearing everybody talk about it is improving my thoughts on it, because I remember the first time I saw it, it didn't really leave much of an impression either. But yeah, like I said, I just feel like just this time in like the second half of the 80s, Carpenter wasn't like at the peak of his powers. Which is crazy because I think The Thing and Christine are two of his best movies, and those were on the other side of the 80s for him. Escape from New York was over there too. But yeah, and like I said, I just don't really think it's that profound or saying anything that grand that like hasn't already been put out there in a bunch of other media, and how it could have gone maybe a little more below the surface than it does. But as like a sci-fi action movie, I don't hate that. It's more so the discourse around it, where it's like when you hear other people saying it's top tier Carpenter, it's saying this massive profound thing. That's what kind of puts me off of it when it shouldn't. It should just be the movie itself that speaks to me. So yeah, just like it having that message, but mainly being, just an action movie at the end of the day, I'm perfectly fine with. And like I said, Piper's commitment to like these roles where he was the lead, was always really great. So yeah.
Owen?
I think it makes me realize how much I really enjoyed another movie that I have name dropped already on this that I feel like is coming to Movie Club next year, because I think people need to see the greatness of Roddy Piper in a theatrical basis yet again on this channel, and I feel like it's going to happen. Yeah, I'll say right now that I enjoyed seeing the movie for the first time. I've been talking about it as a 3D maze for the longest time, 3D house at Halloween Horror Nights. Bring it on, let's go. Just a solid 80s action sci-fi flick that I enjoyed. Probably wouldn't necessarily have enjoyed it back when it came out, because I was like, 7 years old, and back then I really didn't care about anything except for John Hughes, which I know is weird, but it's a shoot. So I've always been the full romantic. That's just how I am, even when I was a kid. The thing is, at the end of the day, it's solid. It's not great. It's not bad. I don't think it's necessarily mid, but I do think it is good for what it is. And like AJ said, Roddy put everything he had into it, like he did with any performance he had, whether it was in the ring or on the silver screens. Yeah. From this to being at the City Park Pavilion for a movie that went straight to DVD, if they were lucky. Needless to say, yeah, rest in peace, Roderick Toombs. You will forever be reminded and remembered here on Popcast Network.
And finally, Chris, your final thoughts.
I like the movie. I mean, I also wouldn't say that I'm over the moon for it, but I picked it because I thought it was a movie that made some fun choices. Yes, the message wasn't all that profound, but I do like the method that it delivered the message. I thought it was different because it was literally like you could see the writing on the wall. Like, I kind of love how obvious it got. That kind of endeared it to me. And with the abrupt ending, I thought after I watched it that the abrupt ending worked well because it felt like the ending moved really quickly. And I feel like if those events were transpiring in front of you, that they feel like they would be happening that fast. But overall, I think it's a solid movie. I'll definitely watch it again. But actually, after I'd recommended this was the first time that I had seen it. And part of the reason I recommended it was after it was over, I was like, man, I wish I had somebody to talk about that with. And then we had Movie Club.
Yep.
It's very useful that way, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Also forces me to watch movies I wouldn't touch in a million years.
I didn't know that was your first time either. I think I would assume you'd seen it back in the day.
No, that's my first viewing.
I thought you did watch it.
No, and I just watched it on a whim. Like, I was literally scrolling through Peacock looking for something to watch, and I saw that, and I was like, yeah, I'll give this a go.
Josephine says,
And-
the coincidence that we're talking about They Live and Ancient Aliens is currently on her TV right now.
TV. No, it's weird because if you go back in that time, back in the day when Chris lived with me, I don't know how that never was on the television, honestly. How did They Live never come across my TV in my old place? I'll never know.
Good question.
Oh, we're probably too busy watching Anchorman or old wrestling videos.
Probably.
That's usually how it worked. Yeah, it's our show.
Yeah. Just a reminder to everybody, 2 weeks' time, week beginning the 12th of December. No, sorry. Yeah, 12th of December. We'll be doing Leave Her to Heaven. AJ's pick from 1945. It's on YouTube. It's on Criterion. All sorts of places.
Is it on archive.org? That's the question.
I mean, it's on
I will-
YouTube. It's on YouTube.
I believe-
So basically, it's on archive.org, right?
Not only is it on YouTube, I believe it's on there. Like multiple channels have uploaded it.
Yeah.
How is They Live? But I watched it on archive.org because I like to stay on brand.
I'm intrigued to see whether any of the versions that are on YouTube, considering the first recommended link, if I put just Leave Her to Heaven on Google, comes up with something that clearly looks to be in probably Russian language. So will it be?
I double checked. There's at least one that's in English.
Okay.
He wouldn't have suggested it unless there was a way for all of us
Because then
to
I'm just
see
going to
it.
get flashbacks to moving violations with that and being in Russian. Jin Tiani. Like,
I want to hear Dana Cannon cut promos in Russian. Let's go.
Which, wow. I didn't realize that film opened on Christmas Day. So I guess it is Christmas themed. So, yeah, that was our docket for 2 weeks' time. But tomorrow.
There's that, and we just talked about They Live in November that opened in November. It's working out.
Hang on. I need to check. That thing you do. Did that come out Christmas? Please say yes. Oh, October 4th. Damn it. Oh, there goes that idea. Yeah, so tomorrow.
For that, all his fault.
Tomorrow, AJ, Owen, and myself will be doing our predictions for the Big Eight
God,
in terms of the Academy Award predictions at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow.
Now, that's a tentative time. Yeah. And I'm saying that the first time live because I'm trying to work on something that may potentially start us at 6, but you'll have to wait.
Okay.
It's possible. Not probable, but it's possible.
When I set the thing up after we go up on this one, I will tentatively put 7. But you have been warned, if you are watching live, that it could go earlier, depending what happens.
Be ready between 6 and 7 just to be safe. Actually, the way this network goes, be ready between 6 and 7:30 just to be safe. I throw people under the bus. That's what I do. I am the Matt Cardona of this network.
And then the Q&A will be back in 2 weeks as well, alongside Leave It to Heaven as well. So I can be found on Twitter. Well, sorry, stuff on the channel. Sip and Snack, Snack Stash. I eventually need to do some gaming stuff. Probably with the Game Awards coming up, I might give my thoughts on maybe the awards and also some of the trailers that get showcased for all the big world premieres, if there is anything of note, which probably means there will be. AJ's movie reviews, as usual, including a John Carpenter themed one, of course, because I guess this
that drops tomorrow.
Yeah.
Versus just went out. It'll be put on the Twitter very soon, but yeah, Versus officially went out for Lake Placid versus Primeval.
I don't watch that.
Unofficial receiver went on that.
Probably on its way, especially with the Festivus season approaching.
Dear God, I only have a couple weeks of Dickens holiday carolers. I have to make it count. So there's 7 sets a day, so that makes it easier. But I blocked out as the 17th of December, so. But that rolls right into Oscar season with getting movies I need to see. So it's it just balances itself out and back to Disney on January.
In terms of social media stuff, I can be found at Ash Is My Name UK. Owen gives updates on the channel via the Popcast Network feed and also his own at Disney. And then Chris, you have your Instagram and your podcast.
Yeah, we have Instagram, Chris Hunts Toys. Podcast is Figures and Flippy Shit Wrestling Podcast, which you can find on any of your major podcast carriers. And we'll be back tonight after Monday Night Raw to post a review of Monday Night Raw.
Oh, the post-Survivor Series edition.
Survivor Series' review went up Saturday night after the show, so you can check that out as well.
Hey, oh no. Mike Ashley, Mike dead. Siva Co. is dead. Hey, you never know what may happen in 2023. I might get a wild hair up my behind and start doing AEW stuff on this network. I want to. I just don't have the time at this point. So we'll see.
Yeah, I cover AEW, WWE, and any major pay-per-views that I can get a hold of. Like I really want to do Wrestle Kingdom this year, but it'll depend on if I can get it or not.
I got a means for you. We'll talk off camera.
Sounds good.
So yeah, Ashley can't talk. So I'm gonna take it home. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight, whether live or in archive. We appreciate you following along for our 17th showing here of the Popcast Movie Club. Tomorrow it becomes crunch time. We're a couple shows away from dropping all categories for the Oscars, and predictions are getting tough as we move forward.
All 22.
Luckily, I have an advantage that neither of the two have because I got super lucky, but only because of where I am. If I was anywhere else, I'd probably be just in the dark as much as most are at this point. But we got a lot to talk about, and if you have any questions that are award related, that pertain to the Oscars or the award season in general, leave them in the chat tomorrow night.
And in case you're watching on archive, Spencer, you don't need to put those 4 questions in. They're still in a notepad document. We'll get to at the early point, either towards the end or between when we do the state of the race and the actual prediction of the 8. Because I'm guessing tomorrow we'll also talk about the, it'll become a de facto talk about the nominations from the Spirits, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and Gotham drops tonight too.
Oh.
Gotham actually gets live in 30 minutes.
I have to keep an eye on that.
Same.
So,
I don't have to work till 9.
Thanks to Bride, Josephine, and whoever else is out there on the interwebs that has watched or listened to this. And oh well, AJ isn't on social media. Keith Richards, conventional weapons, that shit.
Dynamite drop in it.
So thanks everybody. Until tomorrow, boys and girls. Obey the yak.
Stream F about it and go watch the music video on Thursday, noon PST.